creativity is not the finding of a thing, but the making something out of it after it is found. That's a quote by James Russell Lowell. Everyone has creativity. The kind of creativity that I'm going to talk about today will focus on integrating ideas together. It's all about the making something out of it after it is found. There are 3 processes that I will talk about today for creative synthesis. Collective attention, enacting ideas, which is about producing a physical result, and building on similarities within different perspectives. I'm going to talk about some research that was done on this, and then I'll give you an actual example of each of these so that you can see them in action. This was interesting research. They discovered that in the past, when they brought a diverse group together, what they would do to try to end up with a breakthrough idea is list as many alternatives as possible, with the hope that one would be a great new insight for a new product, service, or solution to a problem. What this research proposes and discovered was that perhaps a better approach to this is to have a diverse group and have everyone put their ideas out there and then work on integrating those ideas together. It's about creating meaning in the spaces between the different perspectives. With this approach, you're a lot more likely to come out with a breakthrough solution. When you use this approach, you will use your intellect, your social interactions, and the environment to produce the output. This first example has to do with the process of collective attention. It's just what it sounds like. It means that everyone puts their attention on the challenge. Have any of you ever experienced that? Okay. This example took place at the Orlando Sentinel, a newspaper, in 1999. What happened was that the customers just were not happy with the ads they were producing. The way the newspaper business works is there's 3 different shifts. What this would mean is that someone in the first shift would not necessarily be the person that actually put the ad in the newspaper. It might be the second or third shift. This meant that by the time they started working on it, they did not know who the salesperson was, and they didn't know what they were supposed to do with the ad. They were set up so that the production, the graphic designers, and the salespeople all had their own individual cubicles. They decided, we're going to rearrange things. We're going to bring them all together in this 1,600 square foot space, give them desks that have low panels so they can see each other and talk to each other. That way they can put their collective attention on solving the ad for the customer. What happened was that morale just was great after this. It was more effective, more efficient, and customers were a lot happier. This next process is about enacting ideas. When you're enacting ideas, what you do is you create a drawing or a storyboard, or you might even put together some type of an improv performance, or create some kind of structure out of bits and pieces. How many of you have ever done any of these things? Okay, good. This is the approach that these 3 former Olympic athletes used to create a whole new sailboat and a whole new class of sailing. They invented the laser sailboat. The way this got started was that one of these people he was working for the Hudson Bay Company. This was a large sporting goods company, in Canada that was producing this all new sporting goods product line. For this product line, they wanted to include a folding sailboat. They thought that would be a good addition. This gentleman named Bruce knew that his friend Kirby, they were all in the sailing industry. He knew that Kirby had produced 7 sailboats that were being manufactured. So he thought he'd be a good resource. He called him up, told him about the project. Right when he was on the phone with Bruce, Kirby started to jot down a drawing. Eventually, they turned this in to the Hudson Bay Company, and they rejected it because essentially it was a lot more sophisticated than what they had in mind for their product line. However, this got Bruce to start thinking about this, and Kirby as well. They realized that there really was a gap in the market. There was no one making a boat that fit this particular niche. There were a lot of 20 to 30-year-olds that wanted to test their nautical skill. They wanted a boat that was high performing. In creative synthesis, sometimes the best thing to do is to ask a better question. And that's what they did. The better question turned out to be not what can we do to fill out the Hudson Bay product line, but what can we do to fill this niche? They decided we'll call up our other sailing guy, Voigt, from Denmark. He was also a sailing designer. So they all got together and started to figure out what can we do, what do we want this boat to be about. They realized that they wanted it to be a boat that you could just plop on top of the car and drive to the ocean. These young guys, that's what they wanted to be able to do. It needed to be easy to rig and easy to use, but the main thing it had to have was a very low cost. That was key. They got together, and what did they do? They started to actually build a prototype. Enacting Ideas. They started to test it, try it out. Finally, they got to a point where they thought they had a good enough model to test. They were in luck because the Yacht Magazine was having its annual race at Lake Geneva, Canada. So they went there, they took it, they tested it out. It was a real hit. The sailors and enthusiasts were really excited about this. They got a lot of feedback and feedback from business people, so they went back and they tweaked it and they worked on it all winter. Then they ended up with what they thought was a great product, so they launched it at the New York Boat Show in 1972. At that show, they sold 144 units right off the top. They were able to start licensing this to a lot of different manufacturers. There's been more than 200,000 of these boats that have sold in the marketplace. The Olympics had to create a whole new category of sailing because of this boat. Finally, I'm going to tell you about the third process. This is about building on similarities within different perspectives. This process is interesting because it's all about when people are attracted to a certain idea, different groups of people that are very diverse, but they're attracted to a certain idea. And instead of working against each other, they try to find understanding and build on those similarities. How many of you think that it's possible that car company rivals, General Motors, Ford, and Daimler Chrysler could get together and do something amazing? How many of you think that's possible?
No chance.
If you said yes, you would be correct because they could and they did. And I'm going to tell you all about this, but before I do, I have to tell you a little bit of background about a company called Commerce One. Mark Hoffman was the founder of Commerce One. He founded the company, a software company, in 1994. He started to see new patterns emerge in his business. His customers used his software, and he started to see that there was linkages between the buyers and suppliers, more linkages than usual. So he started to work with them and help them to make something out of this. One day he made a visit to Kuttner, that he was the big wig at General Motors, Harold Kuttner, and he called him up on the phone and he said, well, I've got this new, I want to know if you'd like to join with the Ford Motor Company in an alliance to create an online exchange, supplier exchange. He said, what, are you crazy? That's my enemy, my rival. But in the end, they ended up doing it. They created this great collaboration. They brought in Daimler Chrysler, and they all got together, and they created something called Covisant, which is an online supplier network. Experts have said they think this will be the first trillion-dollar industry in history, so this was a huge success. Today I've talked about 3 processes for creative synthesis: collective attention, enacting ideas, and building on similarities. These are different ideas because instead of just listing different alternatives or options, it's about integrating these together so that you're creating meaning in the spaces between the different perspectives. Now you know 3 new processes that you can use in your teamwork.